Good morning and welcome to Arsenal Domination, where it is, of course, match day for Arsenal. Um, Obviously, the Crystal Palace game in the Premier League today is not really that important, I suppose, for either side. Arsenal look like they're going to finish second in the league, and Crystal Palace, of course, not going to finish in Europe or be relegated. But I think this is an important one still for Arsenal because they still haven't tied up second place, and I still think, despite the disappointment of not winning the league, and I said this before the Ipswich game, not finishing second would feel quite big for Arsenal and would send the wrong signals entirely to the fans. And I think if you win this game and you assume you win Southampton on the last day of the season, that's mathematically enough anyway to finish second. But you just want to get this done so you can focus entirely on Paris Saint-Germain. So I think that's why this is an important game still for Arsenal, and they will want to keep the momentum carrying after the Real Madrid and Ipswich victories ahead of that crucial European game. These two sides have obviously met twice already this season. Arsenal winning both sides, and appropriately enough, given it's Easter, it was Jesus that sort of had his redemption arc against Palace by scoring those goals. But Arsenal winning them 5-1 and 3-2, of course. And it could well be similar this time because I think both there's a lot of decisions for both sides to make. Just turning to Crystal Palace first, then they're without a win in their last three in the Premier League, not in the greatest of forms, and of course their eyes will all be on the FA Cup at the weekend. They had that big semi-final; it's a huge moment for them. And obviously their priority in a similar way to the way the Champions League is for us. Glasner has said that he intends to go full strength for this game, despite the fact they have the FA Cup tie at the weekend. And on one level, you could say that makes some sense. It means he can keep the players going, keep them, well, not the momentum going, but trying to get them to refine some form and some confidence by trying to get a win. But this isn't necessarily the type of game where it's going to be easy to get a win. You're not sort of playing one of the weaker sides in the league. You're playing one of the stronger sides in the league. And you are risking them sort of burning themselves out because Arsenal keep a lot of the ball against Palace. Palace will have to do a lot of running, you'd expect. And that's not ideal ahead of the Cup semi-final, as I say. So I'm quite suspicious about that statement. I suspect a little bit of mind games there from the Crystal Palace manager. But if he does, then, the key men for them are going to be the likes of Mark Gehi in defence, of course, linked with a big move away again this summer. Wharton in midfield, who I'm a big fan of, along with the likes of Eze, and then up front Mateta. He might be one that would be rested. I don't think they want to risk anything happening to him. And of course, it's going to be a tricky afternoon for him against Arsenal's defence. But he does, of course, have a track record of causing Arsenal a few issues, particularly Jakub Kiwior earlier this season. But of course, Kiwior looks a slightly different player now than he did back then. They will have Richard suspended. Nathaniel Klein, not really a centre-back, but expected to come in at centre-back in place of him. You'd expect that to be alongside Mark Gehi if Glasner does go full side. And possibly a chance for Eddie Nketiah to come and play at the Emirates, having left in the summer. But as I say, really difficult to work out what Crystal Palace will do. They're a good footballing side, but you just don't know how strong they're going to go into this. And as I say, I suspect them to see the changes. But them not going full strength may mean we don't go full strength. Of course, Arteta will make the decision before he knows the Crystal Palace side, but he has a similar thing to think about. We have plenty of time before we play Paris Saint-Germain. We have the best part of a week, so it's not quite so soon, but Arsenal won't want to risk the injuries and that horror challenge from Leif Davis on Bukayo Saka, which could have, done some serious damage, may well be on Mikel Arteta's mind, and he certainly won't want injuries to key players like Timber, Saliba, Rice, and Saka. Out of this one, particularly with Thomas Partey suspended, you really don't want to risk injuries in, to your two midfielders that are left, which will presumably be Mikel Moreno and Rice, given the fact that Partey is suspended and Jorginho is injured. So he's got the decisions to make on who does he want to rest and who does he not want to risk injury for. Of course, injury can happen at any time, but of course, playing them in the game increases the risk of injury from a sort of bad tackle or what have you. So he's got decisions to make, as I say, all over the park. I expect Saliba and Kiwior to continue the partnership at centre-back. But the right-back could be interesting. Ben White played the full 90 at the weekend. I suspect that might mean Timber starts this one. But I'd like to see him brought off with Ben White coming on. And then at the other side, you've got the same issue. Miles Lewis-Skelly played a lot of football, only a young lad. Do you save him for Paris Saint-Germain and start Zinchenko again, who of course played very well against Ipswich? Maybe Kieran Tierney comes in there. So lots of sort of options there. As I said, I think the centre halves kind of pick themselves unless you want to rest William Saliba, at which point you're probably playing Timber and White, but that would be a lot of changes for Arsenal to make, and I just think that continuing that partnership will be important. Further forward, as I say, I think he needs to decide what he's going to do in midfield against Paris Saint-Germain. I did a video at the weekend where I felt that Arsenal would certainly be playing a midfield of Moreno, Rice and Odegaard in the same way they did against Ipswich. I think that's the most sensible decision Arsenal can make. It's the least disruptive. Trossard playing up front played quite well. So I suspect that is the midfield will start just to try and build chemistry, and I think that's important. We saw how important it was that Kiwior and Saliba and Miles Lewis-Skelly were sort of playing as a three with Timber at right back, and of course his connection with Saliba well established. But I think that's important for Arsenal to continue that. So I expect that probably to be the midfield that starts. This one, Thomas Partey would be the obvious one to come on for Declan Rice at some point. I'd like to see that change made around the 60-minute mark. Odegaard potentially maybe getting a rest as well, but I think he's just started to find some form. You know, people criticised him in that Real Madrid game. I actually didn't think he was too bad. He just didn't sort of see the sort of flashy stuff or end product, but I thought he worked really hard. He was neat and tidy in possession, made good sort of forward passes on the half turn. And Moreno, of course, continuing that good form he's had since he's had a run in the side as well. But again, more options there. And then on the wing, of course, Martinelli and Saka both recently back off injured. Do you want to risk them? They're going to be key guys again to try and get at the fullbacks, particularly Martinelli down the left against Hakimi, in the Paris Saint-Germain game. So do you rest them as well? Trossard, you would imagine, will continue in the number 9 role if Moreno is indeed going to drop back into midfield. So lots of options for Mikel Arteta. The side I'm going for, as you might have just worked out, as I worked that through, Raya, Timber, Saliba, Kiwior, Zinchenko, Rice, Moreno, Odegaard, Nwaneri, Sterling and Trossard. I think Martinelli and Saka coming on at some point for some minutes will probably be useful for their rehabilitation. But I don't think it's an easy one, as I say, for Mikel Arteta, and it'd be very interesting to see what he does tomorrow. Prediction for the game for me is 3-1 Arsenal. I may well have said differently on Monday night on the True Gooner podcast. I can't remember what I said, but I'm going to go with 3-1. That's going to be my final answer there. But as I say, so difficult to do a match prediction or match lineup for this one because you just don't know what either side are going to do. But as I say, I think 3 points really important now for Arsenal. If they do, they can sort of sew up second place and at least make Liverpool win at the weekend to win the league, which they inevitably will. As always, let me know your thoughts on the game and your score predictions in the comments, and I will speak to you soon. Thanks very much for listening. Goodbye.